Test.
Yes, Mike, you are coming through.
Finally, I'm sorry, couldn't get my mic to work. I was just going to say I would almost risk Downtown Disney for one of those Earl of sandwiches.
Oh, okay. Well, see if they deliver.
There's one in our neighborhood now.
Yeah, there's one up here in Granada Hills, Mike.
There's also one downtown, surprisingly, downtown LA.
Oh, okay.
But to the one by you sells shakes, right? No, bad joke, sorry.
Oh, shake. Oh, yeah, Thursday morning, the whole world shook. It was a hell of a wake-up call. That's the trouble living in earthquake zones. Well, appreciate folks joining. Do we have anybody that's new to one of these chats? Just wave. Okay. Oh, okay. Hi, Administrator.
Yeah, my name is Irv Gleaner.
Oh, hi. Nice to have you join us.
Well, yeah, I've been on your World's Fair site for years.
Yeah, I thought I recognized the name, so appreciate it.
Yeah.
We'll be taking. I'm recording this just so everybody knows. If you don't want to be seen, just turn off your camera. And we're going to be taking a trip back to 1960 today, and ask everybody to keep their hand and arms inside the time machine at all time, and no cell phones and no video cameras, so that people don't realize where we're from. So 1 second here. Let me bring this up. Okay. Okay, show of hands. We see the title slide. Okay, great. Well, yeah, a couple of weeks ago, I thought, hey, it'd be nice to do Disneyland, cover the first 25 years, the happiest place on earth. And then I said, whoa, too many pictures. Let's do the first 5 years. So we then decided that I would try to go over and do the next 5 years. And last night I was trying to finish this up and said, maybe I should be doing the first 2.5 years or something. So it turns out a lot of people took a lot of pictures at Disneyland over the time. As I mentioned when we did this a couple weeks ago, these are all amateur shots. They're not the publicity pictures, so not everything is going to be there. And something that's here in the second 5 years doesn't mean that it was something added in that second 5 years. It means that's when the picture was taken. So let's do that to start, going way back to 1960. And we arrive at Disneyland. It's interesting, when I post one of these pictures online, people start, oh, wow, cars, and it's amazing. People can tell you exactly what car that was, what model it was, and some of them, I think, can tell you, what was in the glove compartment. It's astonishing how people are so up on cars. But what I found interesting is that this is how excited people were. You've gotten there, and you have to start taking your pictures before you've even gotten inside. There's, looking off to the promised land across the parking lot, and the number of people that took these shots is pretty astonishing. So we're at the park. This guy must have been here on a prior day. He's already got his hat with his big plume feather on it. How many of the people had one of those hats when they were growing up? They were almost mandatory, I think. You went to a theme park, a county fair, anything. There were you had to have a feathered hat. And we get to see Mickey. Oh, he looks a little different than he does today, doesn't he? He certainly, one thing, looks like he's a lot taller than he is today. He also looks like he's a lot thinner in body than he is today. And he's definitely got a swelled head. But Mickey's outside. He's welcoming us in. And we can go off into the theme park. And this is, you look at a couple things that are captured here that are gone today. You don't have the Surrey going down Main Street. Behind it, you don't have the little peaked roofed souvenir booth. So lots of little different things as we go through. We'll see changes over time. We also see how quiet the park was in 1960. When I started in 1976, there were still days like this. So we were joking before the start of the call about the rope drop and how everybody goes running maddeningly down the street. Well, look at it a day there that hardly anybody, and they're certainly not running. But we'll wander our way down the street. We see back in the background a big banner up there for Nature's Wonderland, one of the recent additions to the park. And different things, jams and jelly companies and other odds and ends that are gone today. And we come to the Flower Mart. I posted this online. People are asking where it was. If you go down the Main Street, it's the first side street to the left where Carnation is. And you had this beautiful flower garden. And I remember seeing these pictures, thinking it was really nice. And I got down to Disney when I worked there, walked in, and found out all the flowers were plastic, which kind of amazed me because I didn't realize, in retrospect, that in 1960, and even when I got there in 76, plastic flowers were still something people were buying, putting in vases or vases, depending on your pronunciation. But you can see people are actively searching for it. And if you get a Disney mail order catalog of the time, there was a whole section. I've seen one catalog had 8 pages of plastic flowers you could buy from Disneyland and have mailed to your house. So it was a very popular thing, all gone today. But on this side of the street, we had flowers. The other side of the street, you had sketch artists. And again, very colorful, looked great. I was just amazed they were made out of plastic. We get down to the hub, and here comes the bicycle built for 4. Disney's got to always outdo everybody else. You have a bicycle that's great, a bicycle built for 2. Well, there's probably somebody has a bicycle built for 3, but here's Disney's bicycle built for 4. And we're going to see these guys over and over in time as we travel through the park and through the years. Great little thing they had just riding around, and they could sing to folks or wave to folks. And the guy in the back hit the easiest. He didn't have a set of pedals, I think, so he just got to ride. And this one's kind of interesting. It's a shot of the Matterhorn, and you can see the old round Skyway bucket in the background. Off to the left, one of the street cleaners is hitching a ride on the horse-drawn trolley. But look straight in the center, and what do we see but an orange tree fully in bloom? So if we remember that when the park was built, this used to be an orange grove where they had saved a few of the trees, and over time they were still blooming. I think they're all gone now. I don't think any of them are still with us. The entrance to Tomorrowland, called the Avenue of Flags, over to the right. And we go over to the castle. Oh, I can hear my guard dogs barking, and nobody else can. This is, again, still in pretty much the original paint scheme, actually version 2. You can see the gold trim on there that we looked at a couple weeks ago when Walt added the gold when Roy was out of town. But I still greatly prefer this paint scheme to the one that they've come up with now for the anniversary. I think it's much more subtle, much more real castle-ish than they've done in other years. So again, I really prefer looking back at it then. And we go off to Fantasyland. The teacups are in a different spot. Of course, the pirate ship in the background's gone. But this is one of the few rides that I do not like to go on at Disneyland because I do not like getting spun in high-speed circles. But I've done it just so I could say I've done everything at Disneyland. And we're taking the Skyway down below the Alice ride. Again, it's very interesting. You post one of these pictures and the reaction people get. One of the things people are commenting on now is how there are safety rails all along that walkway or that rideway where the ride vehicle is coming down. And you stop and think about it. If the ride had stopped and you have to evacuate people, you've got to take guests, and some of them are elderly or feeble of foot or even carrying small babies, and they had to walk down that giant path all the way down to the bottom. There's nothing to stop you from falling off going down. So I don't have any reports that anybody actually ever did fall off, but it's nice that they've made sure right now it's a little safer to come down. May not be as scenic, but sometimes you got to just make a compromise. Up on the top of the Matterhorn, one of the things you don't see today, one of the climbers, these are the sort of little things I think that really made Disneyland so special under the Walt years. I doubt anybody came to the park to see the climbers. They didn't charge for it. It didn't make any extra money, but it was an extra little plus that they added to the show that people would come out and make it feel like the real Matterhorn with people climbing it. And we're taking a ride from this just in from the Department of Places you can't go these days. The Skyway, sadly, can't replicate this even with a more modern ride system or anything. Going through the middle of the Matterhorn. This is back before it was all enclosed and you could see all the steel beams and before Harold the Monster was added. And down in Fantasyland, we have the motorboat cruise. And it's interesting how many things are very fondly remembered. Post one of these pictures and a lot of people, oh wow, love the motorboat cruise. I remember a number of years ago, I took my staff from England was visiting and we went to Disneyland and they just had a blast out riding on the motorboats. Instead of being all these very proper and reserved British folks, they could just be silly little children riding around on a motorboat. It was a great ride, and sorry to see that it's gone. We're taking the Skyway again, and in this particular view, if you look over to the right, there's all sorts of construction going on. There's some sort of sinister, dark shape showing up there, and we'll have to go and see what that is a little bit down the road. But work continues. There's scaffolding all around the pirate ship, things going on, and Disneyland was certainly a world in progress even back then. The burros were still there. They were still marching around and biting people as they took them out through nature's wonderland. Again, sorry to see that they were gone, but a great ride. A lot of people have a lot of memories of. And these are the sort of little things that I personally think they ought to bring back. Just the bunting, the flags, the colors that are out there, making it look like there's a special celebration going on every day of the week. There's nothing particularly for the Mark Twain here. It's just all decorated with red, white, and blue. But it really does give a feeling, to me at least, that the riverboats come to town, something special is going on, and it also doesn't hurt to see a little bit of Old Glory out there as well. Then we have the Columbia still sailing out there. Picked this particular shot because they're coming up to the dock. Behind it is just a small green hill. There's no Big Thunder Mountain Railroad. There's no Star Wars land in the background. It's all just peaceful, quiet. 1960 being a pretty quiet time at the park after the huge expansion of 1959. The TWA rocket's still poised for flight. We'll take a look at how that's changed in a little while. But for a lot of people, this was really one of the cool things about Disneyland. It's actually interesting, as I was picking at the pictures for this, I realized how many more pictures people took of Tomorrowland, at least back in the 60 to 64 range, than any other section of the park. There's a few sections of the, people took pictures of the Jungle Cruise or the some of Fantasyland. But I'd say Tomorrowland was probably a 4-to-1, maybe even a 5-to-1 ratio of what people were taking. It was, just the new rides. You had the submarine ride. You had, the TWA rocket, all the stuff of the future. And if I remember, in 1960, in this era, we're getting ready for launching men into space and the days of the Mercury astronauts and all. So Tomorrowland was very, very easy to find pictures from. The Autopia still does not have a central rail. We have the monorail behind it. Again, lots going on, lots of interest in going on in Tomorrowland. So keep an eye at this style of the car. We're going to see another style coming up. Here comes our young friend with his feathered hat coming up behind him. And he's got to be really special. He's got a gold car. I mean, really pretty neat. And it's interesting, the car in front does not have a Disneyland license plate. So quality control, if things broke or changed, they were still not all the way there necessarily. But out in the lagoon, something new, the Mermaids. I posted this picture on Facebook in a Disneyland alumni group. And it was amazing how many women were saying, oh, I tried so hard to be a mermaid, and I ended up in merchandising or operations or whatever. Because being a mermaid, I guess, was a very prestigious job at the time. I don't have the control panel up, but I hear somebody making noise. If everybody could just mute themselves, I'd appreciate it. So the mermaids are super popular. They swim out. They have a test in the swimming pool over at the Disneyland Hotel to be able to swim in the tail. They would get suited up. They'd swim out, sit on a rock, and just like the mermaids of myth, they would be out on the rock like a Lorelei, trying to lure the submarines or other people to their doom. There's talk that they got rid of them because a bunch of drunken sailors tried to swim out to the rock. No, it's like everything else. They only worked a couple hours of the day. They were expensive to do. The chlorine wreaked heck on their hair and everything. So just in a cost-cutting mood, Disney eventually got rid of the mermaids. But they were a great addition to the park. We're off to Adventureland. Adventureland looks very different now. Off to the left, there is no Tiki Bird. So a very plain entrance, very quiet entrance going in, and a whole different look than what we have at the park today. But the Jungle Cruise was there in full business. I've yet to find out why what looks like a Chinese flag is hanging from the back of this one Jungle Cruise boat. If anybody knows and can let us know during the Q&A part at the end, that would be great. And Mickey and Minnie were over at the Disneyland Hotel, and they're wandering through. And actually, I think this is still back at the park. I see the avenue of flags over there. But look how different the characters look back in 1960. Certainly a different design than we're all used to. But they weren't the only strange characters. Look at these guys from the Christmas parade. We have pink elephants that come out of Dumbo's Nightmare. Firemen driving the trucks different. I got a kick behind. If you look in the float right behind the fire truck, it's a bunch of mice stuck in a little mouse or a giant mouse trap. You had dancing hippos from Fantasia. You had this battleship would come down and periodically shoot out confetti. The admiral at the top, his head would go up and down. You had a whole different look for Chip and Dale than we had back then. So this is the 1960 Christmas parade, way different than the giant ones we have, the massive floats of more recent parades. And what spells Christmas more than a giant pair of pink bunnies going down Main Street? So they just must have taken every costume they had in the zoo, the character wardrobe area, and put them out on parade. And these guys probably came from an Easter show. Well, we're going to hop to 1961. Again, almost obligatory pictures of the parking lot. For me, I got a kick out of this because as an employee or a cast member, the main cast member parking lot was just off to the right here. And he came in the gate, took a hard right and got to park. Later on, I was able to graduate. I had a parking spot inside the berm, and that was even better. But you'd be parked, right up close, walk into the admin building or the Harbor House time clock gate, and you're in the park. But again, people are super excited. They got to get pictures. I'm at Disneyland already. We're going to walk in. We have our Disneyland 61 banner to let us know for sure it's 1961 and the things that have been added. But first, a few people are going to relax on Main Street. And I got a kick out of this again, because one of the things people get a kick with old pictures is just how well dressed everybody is. I think if you wore a dress today to the park, people would be staring. I know they'd be staring if I wore a dress, but if you ladies went to the park and were out in a dress and, with your necklaces and everything, people would be thinking you're there for the dapper dans or whatever they call the people that dress up as the dappers or whatever when they have the days for that. But on an average Saturday, go down to the park dressed up and people are going to wonder who on earth you were. And here go our friends on the bicycles again. Again, it's the guy in the back has a great job. He just gets to wave, and the other guys get to do all the work. Okay. And this one I got a kick. You don't see today the characters out in public just wandering around because they'll get absolutely just jammed solid with people. But I got a kick out of this one because if you remember from Alice in Wonderland, the White Rabbit, I'm late for a very important date. Well, look at the guy in black running behind him. He looks like he's late to try to catch the rabbit. So, again, dressed in a suit and a heck of a hurry going someplace. We're going to go down the street. We're in January of 1961, so the Christmas decorations are still up. Some of the Main Street windows have already started going up with people that we know. You can see Ken Anderson Bait Company up there. Some of the Christmas decorations are still up. Going down the street, there's the Hallmark Communication Center to the right. You can see the Kodak shop behind it. Again, different stores or shops or businesses that are gone today. Coronation is there. You can still see the flowers behind it. This has been greatly expanded, and where the truck is, the flowers are, it's now used for a seating area for dining. We'll get down to the castle, and we're going to take a trip through the park. But first, another one of the things that's gone, you do not have the number of the Main Street vehicles are all gone, retired, and it's a bit of a shame. 1961 marked the addition of the Snow White Grotto. These Disneyland aficionados probably know the story, how somebody made this donation to Walt to the figures. And when they got them, they realized that there was one mistake made, that Snow White was the same size as the dwarfs. And obviously in real life, she's supposed to be a lot taller. Well, they were amazingly able to use forced perspective to put this together so that now that the dwarfs and Snow White appear to be different, because she's given such a spot of prominence there. But again, this was the new edition for 1961. And we're going to go into Adventureland. Again, still no tiki birds. I got a kick out of this, though. I had 4 younger brothers, and I can empathize with these guys that are all dressed alike. Somebody's mother decided it would be really good, or maybe they had a sale on red shirts and red knee socks, or maybe that's their way. If I lose my kid in a crowd, it will be easier to find them. But it is interesting as you go through old pictures of Disneyland, how many times you see people in the, matching outfits, matching shirts, matching whatever. This was, I think, the first one I've seen with the matching knee sock brigade. We're off on the Jungle Cruise. They have not yet moved to the Pride Rock type of area, but the lions are still, as I say today, Disneyland, guarding the sleeping zebra, because they couldn't be doing anything else, of course. And we'll go back to the Fantasyland that I knew when I first got there, the medieval style tents and all that. Of course, a lot of the things are still there, but in different places, moved around. But this was kind of an interesting look at all the facades that they had put in place back then. Posted this shot a couple weeks ago online, and it was really interesting. People asking if I could give them a blow up of the window, the stuff that was on display. It was a few Disney merchandises. But what was really interesting was the number of women that, oh my goodness, that's where I got my Madame Alexander doll. Oh, that's where I got this one. So an awful lot of people that are grown women today had an awful lot of fun going there as young girls or teenagers and picking up dolls at the Tinkerbell Toy Shop. For anybody that ever worked at the park, it's very interesting. Tinkerbell has about the most inaccessible stock room ever built that had to be confined up in the outer reaches of the castle as everything was done. And whenever you had to go in there to do an inventory, which I had to do a number of times, you just think, my goodness, if there was anybody that was of a large size, either very tall or very wide, you couldn't either get in or out of the stock room, but you couldn't do both on the same day. It was a real bizarre spot. The midget Autopia.
Bill, there's some noise in the background. Could we ask people to mute?
Yeah, hang on. Since you brought this up here, I think I can, let's see, participants. Let's see, mute all. That should be here. Mute all. Okay. Thanks, Wayne. Hopefully that does it. So the midget Autopia was still here. These cars are styled totally differently, you see, than the cars that were on the main Autopia. Giant hood ornaments and everything. And this was one of the last years of the midget Autopia before they took it out and reclaimed the land. But here's the sinister shape that went up in the 1960 construction photo we saw, Skull Rock. And this, again, to me, is the sort of thing that made Disneyland so special. You think about, they added this, and that's the lagoon that goes around the pirate ship. They added this in there. It's a little picnic area. You can see some people off to the left eating. But this had to cost a fortune to put in, and it didn't make any money. You didn't pay admission to go see it. I doubt if anybody went to Disneyland and say, hey, I got to go down and visit Skull Rock because it's new. People go down and visit Star Wars because it's new, or Indiana Jones because it's new. But this is the sort of thing Walt wanted to have a picnic grotto, and he just didn't want to have a bunch of tables sitting out there. So they went way out of their way, came up with Skull Rock with the waterfalls and everything. This was taken, of course, from the Peter Pan movie. But this wasn't even to plug the release of Peter Pan. That had been done years earlier. So that's what I really admire, the things they were doing back at this point in time, spending all this money. I mean, a good amount of money for what was the return? The return was enjoyment. The return was a sense of awe and wonder. It wasn't a return of how many dollars we're going to make because we built Skull Rock. So I got a real kick out of it. Then back then, people may not know it, but the Fritos were invented at Disneyland, and the senorita would come out with her tray. And I've seen accounts that said she passed out free samples. I've seen others that she just posed for pictures and would tell people where to go get their Fritos and their chips or whatever. If anybody knows the true story of the Frito-Lay senorita, please do let me know. Another great thing that was back then was the mine train to the Nature's Wonderland. So we're going by Twin Sister Falls here, or Cascade Falls also called. But the mine train would take you off back into Nature's Wonderland. We had all sorts of fun going on. We mentioned before the mules. There's some shots of the town Rainbow Ridge down at the beginning in Nature's Wonderland. So a bunch of people getting ready to go out on their mules. It was a very interesting area in terms of all these Western facades and false fronts. Again, the people that designed Disneyland had designed movie studios over time. So these were very, very well done. But the whole town there, you could see how everything was interwoven. You had people getting ready to go on the mules. The train is at the station ready to go out. Some people here on the train taking a look at the buildings before they go out into the wilderness. And if you were very, very lucky, you could be on one of the boats, the river boat or a canoe, just as the train would pass you, just as it would pass the waterfall. So a lot of people would go out of their ways to try to get shots like this of the trains out there. We're going around the river. This is the line for the Indian War Canoes, everybody waiting to go. If anybody has worked at Disneyland and been put on the canoe ride, you'll know how enthusiastically all the guests will start when they start paddling. It's a lot of fun. It's exciting and everything. About halfway through, if you're in the front of the canoe and you look back, you can see why it's getting harder and harder to paddle. And as the time you're getting back to the dock, you realize most of the guests have given up and the two cast members are doing most of the work. So it's really interesting on a hot day to see how the enthusiasm level for canoeing goes down. But another view of the river, in the back we have the Plantation House restaurant. There's no New Orleans Square. There's no Pirates of the Caribbean. There's no Haunted Mansion. This was a restaurant that was taken out to allow for all that. We had one of the keel boats off to the right. And we're looking down now from the riverboat and off to across Frontierland, and take an eye on that gazebo because we'll be taking a look at that further down as we go. Something else that's not there today. The Peaceful Indian Village, early in 1961, we look and there's the boy standing on his canoe. He was added, if you remember from last or 2 weeks ago we did this, there was no boy standing on the canoe. Well, they've added the boy. A little hard to see in this angle, but later in 61, the boy, his pet dog joined him out on the canoe. So again, plussing the sort of thing that makes Disneyland stand out, I think, from every other theme park. Whatever it cost them to make that dog, install that dog, and maintain that dog, did not sell $1 extra worth of tickets to the park, but it was one more thing that made Disneyland unique and special. One more thing for your eye to catch as you went around. The poor settler is still out there. The corn stalks we saw as the cornfield is gone from the past. That was off to the left, but his cabin was still burning away. Out on the island, you could go visit regimental headquarters. If you looked through those slats over the wooden doors inside, you'd see the wax figures of Davy Crockett and the soldiers in there as he's briefing them before he and Georgie Russell go off on their trip. And you could also see out here in this dock, people are fishing. And you could actually go out onto the island, rent a fishing pole, get bait, and go fishing. And I still think this has got to be one of the strangest things Disney's ever done. Because you think about it, you go out there maybe 10 o'clock, maybe 11 o'clock in the morning, and you go out and you catch a fish. Wow, that's great. Well, what's that fish going to be like about 3 o'clock in the afternoon or about 7 o'clock at night? I wonder how, I would like to think most people just did catch and release. But if you ever did take that fish with you, I wonder if any of them ever made it all the way out the main gate on the way home. And I wonder if anybody ever ate them. In later years, knowing what that water was like, I never would eat anything that was in that water. But yeah, you could actually go fishing in Disneyland in that period of time. So we're back again, just take another Skyway ride around. You can see, again, things that have changed up in the upper left-hand corner of the screen. The Tomorrowland Station, that's going to be moved over time as we make way for, in 1966, I guess it is, when we add Small World, but that's where it was back then. And again, the Matterhorn, back then they climbed it several times a day. It went away for a while, they brought them back, and they're gone again. I don't know if we're ever going to see the climbers back again. But the House of Tomorrow was still there. The gray sky, by the way, is not an indication of how bad the air was in Anaheim at any point in time. It's that photos will deteriorate over time, the material in them. And sometimes you just get to the point of diminishing returns when you get all the scratches out and everything and say, I'm just going to pretend that's smog. Going on our Skyway ride, we're going to Tomorrowland. I love signs like this. The signage for the Richfield Autopia, the Skyway sign, that pylon that the sign is on. Everything is just So, you know, uber modern for the days of the 1960s. Again, looking back across towards the TWA rocket, if we look over to the right of the TWA rocket, there is a bunch of dirt appearing. And again, people just love to see Disneyland under construction, new things being added. We'll take a look at that dirt a bit more. We have the Yacht Bar off to the side. There was a group that would sing, the Yachtsmen, and of course the Yachtsmen had to have the Yacht Bar, so it was basically a great snack bar. Again, the Autopia, no central rail, the round Skyway buckets, very definitely the Tomorrowland Mark I. And this, as I mentioned, the car has changed. Before we had that kind of sort of snub, flat-nosed car that had the big Disneyland plates across it, where they introduced a new car that was less prone to overheating than the other one. It still had the huge, massive bumpers on it in case of collisions. But again, things have changed since 1960. They had one style of car. 61, we've got another one in place. And again, a fleet of the more modern cars out there. Again, just some views taken of the area. We have the motorboat cruise down below, all sorts of things that are gone today. The Eagle marking, the Autopia is gone, the pirate ship's gone, all sorts of things that have changed over time. The TWA rocket is still there then, still, of course, gone now. The domes behind it, for the people that don't know it, that's where you actually went into for the simulated space flight. There were two theaters. You can see the two domes there. And again, the sign of dirt breaking out to the right of the moon rocket. And here's a closer shot. Anybody have any ideas what that might be? You're going to have that answered real soon. So again, keep in mind on dirt and the way Disney changes. Okay. Again, the little things that I got a kick out of, just the banners, the red, white, and blue, how festive and exciting everything looks like. Something is happening that day that doesn't happen every day because it's special. These are the little touches I wish they would bring back and add into the park. You know, just look at the difference between the Skyway station here, where you have the banners out there, and there's the same station without the banners. I just think it adds a certain something to it. So yes, Bill's hung up on the red, white, and blue. He's feeling patriotic today. Again, more shots just going around, big empty areas back in different parts of the park that we're going to see as time goes by, for the addition of Small World and Toontown and all those things. But back then it was warehouses and other odds and ends. I got a kick out of this one, just the sheer color of the Skyway buckets all going off into the Matterhorn. And that launches us into 62. So in 62, we had people that were real excited. They're on their way between Disneyland and the hotel. They got to get their picture. And of course, the obligatory picture of the parking lot. We noticed the parking lot's getting pretty full today, so it's going to be a pretty busy day at Disneyland. But I think we'll still be able to make our way in. In the background, the tower is being built to the Disneyland Hotel. So that's going up, changing from the first relatively small hotel that opened. I got a kick out of this one because for all of us that parked in the parking lot and walked in through the main gates, just the sound, just turn your brain back to the sound of that monorail making its pass over your head for the first time. You really knew you were at Disneyland when you heard the sound of that monorail going overhead, and it wasn't long before you were going to be inside the park. But if you have a pet, before you go, you can drop them off at the kennel. And I got a kick out of this one here, the next shot. Come here, let's advance. People were taking pictures of the flowers outside. And I stopped and think, back then you had 12, maybe 24 pictures on a roll. And I've talked before about how you had to go and carry the film with you. You had to wind it and do all this sort of stuff, and you had to have it processed and everything. So people were very parsimonious on the pictures they took. Not like today with a digital camera. We'd have, by this time, somebody would have taken 150 pictures just for the time they got to the front gate. But back then, the flowers and everything just outside the gate, and it's a very plain chain link fence with barbed wire on it. But look at the flowers. There was somebody that was impressed enough that when they got to the park, one of the very first thing they took was pictures of the flowers because the park was just so beautiful and so outstanding. And back then, you had things you wouldn't have today. You had characters outside the gate. Free entertainment. You don't even need to pay to go see the characters. So you had Pluto out here running around messing with the kids. You also had Pluto messing with the tour guide. So I guess we can probably pretty well guess it was a guy inside the Pluto suit today. But they had the tour guides out there trying to interest people in signing up for a tour guide of the park. So it's kind of interesting. And we go inside. We have a new style Mickey. We don't have that giant head with a very thin body that we saw before. Mickey now's got some shape to him. He's got a more realistic sized head. And this is a Mickey design that stayed with the company for many, many years. We're going to go down Main Street. And it's interesting, if you look across at the cinema, you can see Buster Keaton in the movie Alley's Oop. During this point in time, they actually showed full silent movies. And you could tell the different time of the, trying to date the pictures, because they would have the different names up there. And you could see Lillian Gish starring in this, Buster Keaton in this. And it just didn't show a cartoon that might last 6 minutes or something. They might have something that would go on 20 minutes, which today management would never do that. Take somebody out of a cash producing area for 20 minutes. They wouldn't do that. But they did it. They showed the Phantom of the Opera, and they had an actual Phantom of the Opera character costume that when you went to the movie, you came out, the Phantom was waiting for you on Main Street. So again, it's the sort of plus that they weren't trying to nickel and dime you every time. If you went to go down and stand in air-conditioned comfort and spend 20 minutes watching a Buster Keaton movie, do it. Next time you come back, there'd be another different movie. Obviously, we're along the river by Frontierland, and we have a gunfighter and a card slick here. And these guys used to get into arguments and gunfights, and the marshal would have to come in and arrest people, or he'd shoot them dead in the street. They'd shoot them and they'd fall off the roofs of the buildings, all things that are way, way gone today. No more shooting at Disneyland. But these are characters that would wander around. It was every Western theme park at the time had a shootout. Every Frontierland or frontier town across the country did shootouts. So Disneyland did them. And again, we have our senorita passing out Fritos. So again, if anybody has any personal knowledge of what she actually did, if she gave him out or just posed with him, please let me know. More proof is that the backside of water exists in more than one place. We're not taking the Jungle Cruise. It's not the backside of Schweitzer Falls. It's the backside of what do they call it? The two twin sister falls. And you get to see bear country. So you had the bears out there, and they're climbing the trees to get honey. They're scratching themselves on rocks or trees to try to get rid of an itch. Or they're even swimming out to try to come and meet you out as you go past them. So it was a great area. Really miss it. If you're taking the train around, you had the tumbling rocks that looked like they were going to fall on you. You had the bobcat that was going to come and get you. And this was all, of course, mechanized. The rock would tilt, the big flat rock would tilt. The round rock would come rumbling right up to the edge, and your train would get out of the way, and it would reset and scare the next people coming out. Just great fun out in the back. You had characters that are not seen too often today. It's been a while since the pigs are out in the park. And then it's interesting, when I worked at Disney, there was a lawsuit about one of the pigs. And it was kind of interesting. This woman swore that one of the pigs came up to her, grabbed her, fondled her breasts, and traumatized her. So she sued the company, and they went to court. And I shared an office with one of the attorneys that handled this, and it was kind of interesting. They asked the woman to describe it, and she went through very big detail on how the pig had come out and fondled her. And they said, firmly grabbed her breast, and yes, it did. And they brought in somebody dressed in the pig suit. And they asked, does this resemble the pig that fondled you? And the woman said yes. Her attorney objected, that it could be anybody in the suit. And they said, well, we just want to see, is this the costume? We remember somebody doing this to you? Oh, yes, absolutely. That's it for sure. And, I can't stand to be in the same room with that horrible freak. Well, they then pointed out that the pigs did not have real hands, that the person inside the suit is holding a metal rod that is attached to the hands, and the fingers and hands of the pigs cannot flex or move, and there is no way that they could fondle anybody or grasp anybody firmly, as she had claimed. So the attorney said it was a very short lawsuit, but it's probably in one of the few lawsuits in which a pig has been put on the witness stand. Anyway, we got a kick out of, again, Skull Rock, just a great addition into the park. And we're going into Tomorrowland. Oh my goodness, what's happened? The TWA rocket is now the Douglas rocket. TWA had ended their sponsorship of the ride after a number of years. The Douglas Aerospace Company took it over. And it's just amazing how it's the exact same rocket, but it doesn't look anywhere near as impressive, whether it's the giant wording on it or the stripes or whatever. But the TWA, the color and architecture of the signage was just wonderful. I think I lost a lot when you went to the Douglas area. Back in 1961 or so, we're into the area of crew cuts, but we're still in the area of giant feathered hats. So people are still wandering around with those. But remember all that dirt? Well, that dirt has now become the flying saucers. The flying saucers being, without a doubt, Disney's most popular failure ever. They put the flying saucers in, and they found out that this was, for the folks that weren't ever on them, they were basically airborne bumper cars. And those circles you see on the ground would open up, let air jets come out, lift the sled up, and then you would be able to guide it with handles leaning to the left, leaning to the right. It rarely worked. It was particularly noisy. They kept trying it. And this here, everybody's getting loaded. This metal arm would come sweeping out and guide you all together and put you in there. Again, people are just having a great time with it. They're laughing. And that's what's really interesting. You see most of the pictures of it. It's, I'll just go back to 1 second. People are having a great time. And anytime you ask people, what should they bring back in the park? Right at the top of the list comes the flying saucer ride. If you were very lucky, you might be out in the park. This was a birthday party that was being done for a Disney executive, and they surprised him. Hey, I have the guy's name. I don't have it in front of me, but hey, Tom, let's go into the park and have lunch today. And he gets out in the park, and they're all the dwarfs, Snow White, and everybody out there having a birthday party for him. So how cool to be a Disney executive and have a surprise birthday party out in front of the castle. And we're getting to the end of the year. We're setting up now for the parade. So back then you could get a VIP seat for a small fee in front of the Christmas parade. You had different characters. I get here, Donald's driving down the street and he's got Huey, Dewey, and Louie with him. We have the dancing blocks of holiday bricks coming down the street, giant drum, and a giant balloon release, something we can't do today, environmental reasons. I posted this about 2 weeks ago online, and people, oh my God, think how many birds Disney killed with the balloons. Well, we know that now. We didn't know that in 1961, 62, so let's cut the mouse some slack. The balloon releases were spectacular. 1963, real quick, we're going to the park, turn around, obligatory picture of the parking lot. And the train is different than what we have today. You still had the baggage car going out there. So they have basically taken all these out because as you can look, these people are sitting inside a train car. You can actually see glass in the windows. Gets hot, no air conditioning. So we have totally different trains today that are much more humane to ride around on. There's our friends on the bicycle. I think this might be about the last year, their swan song of going around. This one, I have yet to find out what the backstory behind it was. This kid is out on Main Street and he's swatting at a piñata. I have no idea why there's a piñata on Main Street. If anybody has any clue, I would love to know what sort of clout or pull this kid's family had to pull this off. If everybody remembers swans that were in the moat around the castle, they're gone now because two things. One is they said there was too much debris falling on them from the fireworks. In reality, I just don't think they want to pay for the guy that took care of the swans or rented them from. And yes, the swans were rented. The keel boats are gone today, but again, coming around the river, kind of a nice view of the river with all the trees along it, and things have really grown up since the shots we had of years ago. You can see Tom Sawyer's shack and what's listed for sale there, but bait. And there's the fishing dock again out to the left behind it. The Indian Village was still there, still dances going on. And for everybody that says, oh, people are so well behaved back when I was a kid. Nobody ever did anything wrong. There were signs and people obeyed them and everything. Nah, they didn't. People were idiots even back then. So if you had a live buffalo out there at the Indian Village, what do? You let your kid jump under the fence and go up to the buffalo. I don't know if Disney kept these buffalo sedated or what, but I know I wouldn't let my kid go out and find out how peaceful the buffalo was. They also, again, you could go off and tour the Indian village, and they had different displays inside the teepees or inside the Hogan lodges, things that they had put up. And we're taking another look. Oh, there's still nobody using that bandstand. Maybe someday we'll be lucky and find something happening there. Things they did back then, they don't do now. The Main Street Band or the Disneyland Band would just be found walking all throughout the park, performing, just keeping things going, entertaining. Again, things are different than back now. If you could do this today, which you can't, no Skyway, you'd have, of course, Star Wars Land out where the trees are and stuff. But back then, just kind of a peaceful end of Fantasyland, kind of a dead end, as a matter of fact. There was no cut through going over to the river. The hub, very colorful. No partner statue of Mickey and Walt in the center. Back in the Douglas rocket back there in Tomorrowland. And this was, again, a thing I got a kick out of. Why do people take certain pictures? Well, somebody was so appreciative of the fact that these benches were there and you could just relax and it was nice and peaceful, that people would take pictures of things that were memorable to them. And I guess whoever was there just liked the colors or the style of the design, but a very peaceful, tranquil moment out there in a normally busy Tomorrowland. We're over at the Disneyland Hotel. You could take your monorail over there and pop over to the hotel real quick. Or you could hop into 64 real quick. The tower is now done. We saw that in construction before. So the Disneyland Hotel was later expanded, the tower even more so than it is here. But the Disneyland Hotel is now a thriving thing with giant swimming pool, lots of gardens, lots of things going on at the Disneyland Hotel. We hop over to the park, and a lot of people are taking this picture because, oh, there's a picture spot. And everybody has to follow the signs to take a picture spot sign. So we'll get a picture of the train station. Other people will take a slightly different picture. But now notice the trains are more what we know today. They're open air. They're not sticking people inside baggage cars and things. And you can actually see more and, more importantly, breathe more. Back then, they were interested in getting people to come to Disneyland. So they had contests like the Spring Fling. And all these fabulous prizes on this board here were things that were given away by sponsors. You could get a Kodak camera. You could get time from Hertz Rental Cars, Goodyear Tires. But they would actually have different promotions to get you to come to the park. Where today, the biggest problem they have is the park gets too full. In 1962, they're still, or 63, they're still trying to get people to come down so we'd have special promotions to come. We're into Main Street. You had the Shoe Shine Boys, and these guys would come out and they would shine your shoes, or they would break out in the song and dance. They had harmonicas and they did a tap dance act, and they entertained out in front of the Main Street, the theater. Or you could sometimes spot them out later in later years once New Orleans Square was open. They would perform out there as well. And we have, and where Mr. Lincoln is today, you had the headquarters of the Mickey Mouse Club with Mouseketeer Lorraine. I don't remember her from the show, but they had different cast members who would come out here, dress up as Mouseketeers, because back then the Mickey Mouse Club was syndicated, and they would do sections of the show with a woman named Judy Tyler that was here on the air in LA, and she would do brief introductions of the Mickey Mouse Club. And they also had Professor Wonderful, who is a guy named Julius Sumner. He did different things that were being done of science demonstrations, and you could go in, be part of the live audience that was actually shot at Disneyland, and then they were slugged into the Mickey Mouse Club sold across the United States. Another fake Mouseketeer. Behind her is one of the sets that was left over from Babes in Toyland. The movie had been made at the studio in Burbank. The sets came down. They were at the Opera House in Disneyland for a number of years. And when they were doing the Mickey Mouse Club syndication, they had not yet cleared out all the sets, so they could still see part of them sitting in the background. And you could go and get a picture taken with you, yourself and Mickey Mouse and send that home to everybody. And this was, again, a great way to get people to come down to Disneyland and also get a free audience for the segments that the studio was doing for the syndication of the show. Now, this is kind of an interesting shot. We see another different movie over at the Main Street Cinema, something with Dorothy Gish. What I get a kick out of this is everybody's on the sidewalk. People walked on the sidewalk and you rode in the street. There's a few people that are breaking the rules sort of halfway down. But back then, everybody just did what you were supposed to do. You walked on the sidewalk, because at home, you don't walk down the middle of the street. So at Disneyland, you didn't walk down the middle of the street. But Mickey walked down the middle of the street. Again, today, send poor Mickey out without handlers, and what's going to happen? The flowers are still there. They're still doing well. And oh, this is a set of interesting pictures. I bought a photo album from a guy that worked at the camera shop here on Main Street. And he went out and captured a number of the cast members. Surprisingly, or not surprisingly, captured mostly the female cast members working on Main Street. So I just thought people might get a kick out of seeing some of the costumes we don't see today. So with different design costumes in the background, you can also see some of the different signage and everything. We're into Coke Corner now. I blew up the pictures and posted them online. You can see the price for the foods. It was quite a bargain. This was an interesting department. This is not the department of hairspray. That hair just amazes me how much hairspray that must have taken. It was a gift wrapping department. So you could come in, you could get one of those wonderful Disneyland maps for 48 cents plus tax, right? But you could also get your presents that you bought at Disneyland gift wrap. So you would bring them in, and this lovely young lady would wrap them up and put these different bows on them and everything. And then they would hold them for you. So at the end of the day, you could pick up your packages and take them home. So I don't know how long they had gift wrapping at Disneyland, but it's certainly something well long gone by now. This tour guide was, I guess, smiling. Maybe she's happy. I just noticed looking to the left, she didn't have to wear the hat that kid is wearing. So I don't know, maybe that's a yarmulke. I can't tell. The way they sold so many hats in that period of time, different styles. And we go inside the camera store for people that are into photography. There's all those souvenir slides that you might want to buy off to the left. Some more hostesses, and they would decorate the store in different styles. So now we're into fall fun, brilliant color, and again, some fall foliage type colors up in there. And out in the park, the tour guide here has a very old style name tag, a triangular style that's no longer in use. We had back at Coke Corner, you just didn't have the pianists that were all used to many years of him playing down at Coke Corner. We had an entire 5-piece combo out there playing and singing. But again, just out to the park, and this is a sort of view that just to me is wonderful. I mean, it doesn't look like you're in Anaheim. It doesn't look like you're in Southern California. It's just the sort of thing today that I think they've gone a little too crazy with the colors. Back then, you could really, to me, see the Neuschwanstein influence of the castle and the fairy tale ambience of it. Haven't been too many changes in over in Tomorrowland other than the Douglas rocket. This whole Frontierland doesn't have too many years left on Earth, so it's still there, but it's going to be greatly changed in the near future. People are still out trying to make the flying saucers work. This isn't a great photo, but again, I get a kick. The guy in the yellow shirt, he is just laughing his head off. The lady to his right, they're all having a great time. They didn't move as fast as they were supposed to. They didn't go as high as they were supposed to, but they were a very, very popular failure. Little details, again, the Douglas rocket is venting because we all knew from our watching all the Mercury astronauts before they were launched into space that the fuel was all venting from their rockets. So, of course, they had to vent from the real ones. Again, the old style Tomorrowland, the original Astrojets are still in place. Things are going to be changing soon. And again, just the signage, looking across it, it's a world that in a few years is going to be bulldozed into oblivion. The Matterhorn, interesting, if you take a quick peek here, the thing that's different, this is the single car Matterhorn when there was just one sled before they hooked them up in tandem. And we could go over to Tomorrowland, get a nice view of the fish that were out there. Again, just things that made Disneyland so special, the animals, all the little details looking at those portholes. Again, characters wandered freely in the park. They weren't just done in pre-stage photo ops. So here you have the pigs out there. You had the big bearded wolf coming up behind them. I got a kick out of this one. If you look at the pig, you could see that they needed to improve the screening that was done over where the characters inside are. You can see him staring out at it very, very plainly. But this does give you an idea of how high he is up in it and how you can tell for sure that the pig arms are not people arms unless this guy was very, very strange. If I had a time machine and if I had a few extra dollars, I would head straight for this shot. In the background, you could see one of the annexes of the art corner, This is where this is sold. The Disneyland art corner sold cells for $1, $1.25. Think what you could do if you went back with $100 back then, what you could do for your retirement fund today, selling the artwork at the auctions today. There was a main art corner over in Tomorrowland, and then they introduced this annex over in Fantasyland. And again, just fun out in the Skyway, lots of colors, lots of things changing. And one more cruise in the motorboat. And look just how authentic they made this look with the rapids, just water pouring over rocks. Kids loved it. They thought they were in charge of their motorboat. You'd be going right for the rocks, and they'd be swinging that wheel, which of course did absolutely nothing. But their parents would be telling them how much they had saved them from crashing. And boy, what a great thing for the kids to go out there and just enjoy themselves on the motorboat cruise. Excuse me. Over back in Fantasyland, the theater for a long time showed the same 3 cartoons over and over. But for a while, they actually had stage shows in there. Here they were showing a version of Mickey and the Beanstalk, which for some reason they were billing it as Jack and the Beanstalk. Walt never did a cartoon back at this time of Jack and the Beanstalk. Over the left, the Welch's Juice Bar, favored for those of us who would like something cold on a day. And you got to see a whole bunch of characters you would not normally see out in the park, like Flower and Thumper. So you just didn't normally see them out wandering around. I don't know why some characters were more seen than others, but very rare to catch them out there. Or you could catch Alice and the White Rabbit. Alice is one of the few what they call face characters. Like we had Peter Pan back in the shot. There was somebody playing it. Sometimes they have a young man, sometimes a young lady, the Mary Martin style of Peter Pan. And they were the only ones that were allowed to actually talk to the characters, because all the rest of them, you can't do Mickey's voice as well as Mickey. You can't do Chip and Dale's voice as well as them. So the face characters are the ones allowed to talk. This is one that I never did. I did a bunch of characters. I would hate to do this one. I cannot stop and think how heavy that head had to be. I mean, that's just a massive, massive costume to be wearing around. Another set of characters you don't see, I mentioned before, we had gunfights, and here's both the marshal and the sheriff. They're 2 different ones because they have 2 different badges. And they entertaining this young lady or young ladies out there, but they would go and shoot the bad guys dead. The Painted Desert is still spewing away, having a great time out there, and the Bobcat is still coming down trying to get at us. And people are still ducking under the fence to go out and pose with the poor buffalo. You could go out to the island, and you had the teetering rock that they took out because it might come down and hit your feet. And we had the Sentinel Rock you could climb up to, the waterfall behind it, which they took down when it dry rotted. Again, things that are gone. A very, very, very rare shot of a Adventureland that you could actually make your way through. This has remained, ever since the park opened, one of the most constricted and bottleneck parts of the park. The Treehouse, a great view here. Again, this is back when it was the Swiss Family Robinson Treehouse. And a new addition, the backside of the Tiki Bird show. These people are getting ready to go and take a look inside, but this was a new addition added to the park. Remember, at the entrance to Adventureland. And what's this up on the river? An empty haunted house. Oh, I can't wait to come back next year when it will be open. Or maybe the year after that. Or maybe 3 years after that. So as everybody knows, or probably pretty much everybody knows, the Haunted Mansion was built and stood there for years empty before it was finally open. But this is the year it was added into the park. It's getting late, so we're going to watch the band do the flag ceremony at Main Street. And we'll get a real quick view of Skull Rock at nighttime. Just a great view, the way those eerie eyes lit up. But before we leave, let's just take a look. Somebody who was there, they had one last picture on their roll. A big year for Disney, because in Hollywood, we have Mary Poppins at the Grauman's Chinese Theater. And we're also going to take a quick look back. I didn't want to mix color and black and white and jar people too much, but we're going to take a look at some shots that the fellow from the Codex shop got. Main Street, before it opened, people are still down, getting ready to come down. And I just thought we'd look at some of the shops that are gone today. Again, this butcher shop, market house that's gone. the big empty facade there. A couple of years ago, we saw that. That was the Ruggles China shop. Well, Disney now is making the effort to buy out all the licensees. So at this point, they had bought out Ruggles. They had not yet bought out the Timex watch shop, but they were on their way soon. The Hallmark shop stayed there for quite a number of years. They were one of the licensees that lasted the longest. The art corner where the caricaturists were there off to the side there. Upjohn Pharmacy in one of its final years. Again, they gave out free samples of things like aspirin in tiny little boxes that still pop up on eBay from time to time. Mentioned earlier, you could go and see different movies there at the theater. And he got some other costumes. I think these costumes here, there's a cup in the ladies' house from the Plantation house, but I think these are the costumes for the people that were working over in Adventureland at the time. And again, people just were relaxing, having a good time, the cast members enjoying themselves. We're going to hop into some miscellaneous years. These were ones I knew were from the 60s, but I couldn't tie down the exact year. But we're into Tomorrowland. The atomic age, the atomic symbol up on the wall, the atom is our friend. So great time there. The Avenue of Flags, you can see the little markers telling you what all the state flags were on those going in. Again, just a view of Tomorrowland from the 60s. You could get your fun photos. You could buy hats. You could do all sorts of things. Oh, and our gazebo has people playing it this time. Actually, I turned out to have a number of people, pictures of these mariachis playing in there and people enjoying it. But I had many more pictures of it being empty. I don't know what year this was added, and I don't know what year it came out. But for somewhere in the 60s, the first 5 years, the 60s, this was an addition into the middle of Frontierland. And they had a pirate on board. This guy would sit on board the pirate ship, and he's smoking a pipe, which is kind of interesting. And he would actually tell pirate yarns. And you were on a pirate ship, so what better to have a pirate yarn? And he'd be up there entertaining you. You could go off into the treehouse on the island back before they closed that off for safety reasons. Oh, this is kind of interesting. This was a big era for 3D photos. And I wish you all had 3D glasses, because I'd love to give you a 3D look at Disneyland. I have several hundred pictures of Disneyland in 3D. Maybe you guys are real good at crossing your eyes and making it work. But someday I'll find a way that we can do 3D online. We'll get to you in Q&A, Baron. And that's it. So at the end of every show, there's somebody that has to come and clean up after the ponies. This poor guy had that job on Main Street. But appreciate folks taking a look at Disneyland the second 5 years. For anybody that's new, again, I mentioned my website, worldsfairphotos.com/Zoom, has the schedules for the various weeks on it. Matter of fact, let me stop sharing here. And I wanted to do something a little different this week and take a poll for next week. So I'm going to pop up a poll here. Everybody gets to vote. It's totally anonymous, and you are not held accountable for your vote. So I'm going to launch the poll, and people should see it. So for next week, I was thinking of the 1982 Knoxville World's Fair or Walt Disney World the first 5 years. So I'd like to, so far, Disney's in the lead. Whoa, it's either one, okay. I was thinking of putting up an option, nothing, but nobody. Okay. Well, it looks like Disney World the first 5 years is winning by a resounding 68%. Knoxville World's Fair 17%, and either one 15%. So I will change the posted schedule, which says Knoxville, and I will go with Walt Disney World the first 5 years, which is easier for me. So great, you guys all voted just the way I wanted you to. Appreciate it. So let me close the poll here. So comments, let's see. Our family drove from Washington State to Disneyland in '61. Do you have any pictures to show us, Kathy?
Unfortunately not. I know I remember seeing a couple black and whites, and one where, what was it? I think Captain Hook was scaring my mother, but long gone.
Yeah, that's super. Somebody, yeah, Dave Bosser has a 3D Disneyland book coming out soon. Looking forward to that, and I'm helping him with another project after that. Great guy, great historian. Derek mentioned the easy way to show 3D slides. I can easily show a 3D slide. He's mentioned you can combine it with red and blue glasses, and I can do that, and I've done that. Matter of fact, I sell CDs of 3D photos, and I actually include 3D glasses. I have a pair of 3D glasses here somewhere on my desk. The trouble is, how do I get the 3D glasses out to everybody that's out there watching? So, yeah, I mean, I have a World's Fair, 64 World's Fair CD in 3D and the Expo 67. And I've been thinking about doing, like I said, I must have about 250 or so 3D shots of Disneyland, and it's really great. You put the view up to your face, and off you go. You're all set. So, but okay, next week we will do Disney World the first 5 years. One of the spring fling prizes was the Disneyland party. I wonder if the party with the piñata could have been one of those prize parties. That's a possibility. Yeah, the trouble right now, the archives are closed because of the pandemic, so they can't get access to a lot of these things for me. So when mention it, to people, oh yeah, I can look in that when I get back to my office. The 3D glasses can be bought online. Yeah, I might try to give some people some options where to buy it and do it in 3D some point down the road. And Kim has a couple pairs of 3D glasses. Yeah, I mean, 3D, it really, the whole thing is, it's a whole different look to it. And I actually have a stereo realist camera that I went down to Disneyland, shot some pictures, and I've got Carol and our daughter on the, Main Street and riding the boat at Small World and that sort of thing. So lots of fun in 3D. Great old technology. Comments, questions, suggestions. Thanks to everybody for hanging in there.
Bill?
Yeah, Mike.
Hey, it's Mike. I got my camera working for a couple of minutes, but can you hear me okay?
Yes, and we can see you too.
Okay. One thing I want to tell you, that noise canceling headphones you're wearing, it ain't working. I could hear those dogs like they were in the house here.
Well, you probably can't hear the air conditioner right now. Can you hear that?
Okay. The other thing is, last time we were on, we talked about how you took me and my wife to the 1980 25th Mouseketeer reunion taping at the studio.
Right.
And that they gave out hats, Mickey Mouse hats to all the attendees. And I found mine out in the garage, and I wanted to share it.
Oh, that's right. We were supposed to all wear mouse hats. I forgot that. Oh, okay. Leslie's got hers. You got to put yours on, Mike.
Yeah, but this is from the taping in 1980, and I'm going to move it in here. I don't know if you can see that, but it's signed by Annette.
Oh, neat.
A little faded, but I don't think it fits anymore, actually.
I don't think they ever fit.
Yeah. But
yeah, Carol found hers a couple weeks ago, and it's here in my office, so I have to go find it. But yeah, we were very lucky. Carol and I worked at the studio, and they came up with the Mouseketeer reunion, and they said we need people to be in the audience. Yeah, sure, we're all set. So Mike and I and Carol and Stacia Martin were sitting there all in a line in the second row. The first row was Mouseketeer families, and then we were there. And if you watch the show very, very quickly, I think it's at the 48-minute mark, we're all sitting there having the time of our lives. So it's one of the perks of working for the mouse. Great, Mike. Thank you.
Hey, Bill.
Yeah.
Rich Barnes. My
Hey,
family,
Rich.
we were visiting.
Uh-oh.
They were shooting the Disneyland After Dark show for the TV show on Sundays. And I got to meet Walt Disney and shake his hand.
Oh, that's really neat.
He was signing autographs and sitting on a bench park between takes.
Now, everybody who's mad and will never speak to Rich again, raise their hand. That's really cool. Yeah, somebody else said my dogs certainly heard those dogs barking. Yeah, somebody came to the door twice, and the two of them are just
two different people.
Yeah. So they're very loud. Like I said, I use the headphones, not because I admire the Princess Leia look, but this way I can run the air conditioner with all the computers and everything and not the, fan noise and all the rest of it. So the noise canceling headphones, they're not noise eliminating headphones. So yeah, I know every time I do one of these things, I keep thinking, oh, I know that the mail lady's going to ring the doorbell and the dogs are going to go crazy. Well, they really went crazy today. But it just shows, if I was here in a studio, it'd be all different, but it's the pandemic.
Yeah. And by the way, I forgot to say the colors on your pictures are so vibrant. It's almost like you're standing there. And I love that painted desert with the pots. That's one of my favorite things.
Yeah, I mentioned last week, and did you go back and watch the last one we did, Mike? Southern California.
No, I've been finishing my big project that launched today on YouTube.
Oh, great! Well, you go back and you can see yourself in last week's show several times. Yeah, the Painted Desert.
Bill,
Yeah,
Bill, I got a question for you. With this pandemic going on, how busy is it at Disney World parks in Florida? Is it even economically viable to keep them open, or is it too few people even in the place?
beats me. From my point of view, if it wasn't viably economic, knowing Disney, they would close again. But I think that they're hoping to just tough this out and ramp up and bring back the next park online and work their way through it. It must be viable, or they wouldn't do it. But they don't share those numbers with me. And
actually, there were some folks on YouTube that posted videos the first week they reopened, and the place was empty. They had it basically themselves. They went to Epcot. They went on every single ride in like 2 hours. They were done with the park. So there was nobody there.
Yeah. I mean, it's I know I wouldn't be doing, because again, how do you wipe some of those things down so quickly in between people? But
it's a real risk.
Yeah, and probably a lot of the people going there don't have the amount of gray hair that we do. So the younger all think they're invulnerable and they won't catch it, and hopefully they don't bring it home to grandma. So
exactly right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bill?
Baron, go ahead.
Yes, just to let you know that I was not singling to ask a question. What I was doing is I was trying to parallel view the stereo view, and it was just too far back and I couldn't quite focus in. And that's exactly what I was doing. I was trying to separate my eyes to.
I thought that might have been the case. I wasn't quite sure.
Look at 3D photo. But on top of that, if you don't have a pair of old stereo vision glasses or a viewer, the easiest thing to do today are these virtual viewers. You go pick up the plastic ones and the cardboard ones for $5 at Best Buy or something like that. The only thing you need to do is you got to put the pictures on your phone, shove your phone onto the back of the thing, and then you can look at things in 3D. That's the new style Viewmaster these days. But that's the easiest thing to do, and that's what I do when I create 3D pictures, or I find a 3D picture that I can't, parallel crosswise on the screen. I'll download it to my smartphone and then throw the smartphone into my virtual viewer and then look at it that way. And it's just as a side note, if you haven't, for an easy way to look at 3D pictures. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, Richard's got a fancy one there.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't quite sure what you were doing. So, stage manager going, chop, stop. But no, it's interesting because some people can look at a 3D thing and move their eyes to see it. I guess I still have my mother's voice in the back of my head. Cross your eyes and they'll stick that way. So I just can't see the 3D views without using 3D glasses.
Well, if it was a cross view where the right was on the left and the left was on the right, I don't need to do that. You just cross your eyes and focus right here. and truthfully, it is a lot easier. But on a parallel view that normally goes in viewers, you kind of have to look beyond it, much like the 3D pictures that they came out with 20 years ago, the book of 3D pictures, where you kind of have to look close and then bring yourself back out where you can see the 3D picture inside the overall picture. It's the same way. And that's what I was kind of trying to do. And I presume that was a parallel vision that would normally go into a viewer.
Actually, that one was cross-eyed.
Was it cross-eyed? Really? Okay.
It was done from a studio 3D realist, so those weren't cross-eyed, were they?
Well, I crossed my eyes and I could see it fine. So,
well, if it's not a cross-eyed view, what you see an inverse of depth, which is kind of fun to see sometimes, because then you kind of like see put a mold on your face. You're not looking at the outside of the mold. You're actually looking at the inside of the mold. And that's kind of what you're seeing. Other than Mike, who's going crazy with his little 3D glass.
Hey, this is far out, man. I'm seeing you on 3D.
Vivid color, right, exactly.
Well, here, let me
Okay,
just...
I have two cheapy film cameras. One of them takes stereo like the old style stereopticon photos where the right is on the right and the left is on the left.
Yeah,
and the
Beth has
other
got
one
there.
takes cross-eyed stereo. And looking at them and seeing them without the viewer is a skill that you can learn and practice.
Yes.
I learned it when one of my dad's photo magazines came out with an article on stereo photos from the Apollo project. And of course, me as a space freak, I really wanted to see those. He knew about stereo photography, so he helped, and I learned to free view stereos, right, left. The cross-eyed for me is really hard. I use viewers when I want to see those.
Yeah, I'm just looking for something here real quick.
Yeah, I've never had a problem doing cross-eyed. It gives you a headache after a while, but it's a lot easier. And I guess particularly since we're all of the age where we need reading glasses that, our eyes don't focus. I'm sure I'm sure little kids have no problem doing it, but I've gotten to that age where, my eyes don't focus as well like that anymore, where I need a viewer.
It seems to be an individual thing, whether you can free view the right, left easily or the cross-eyed easily. It just seems to be an individual thing plus practice.
Is that like a dominant or recessive gene?
Yeah, let me pull up something real quick. So for you 3D folks.
Okay. Oh, well, that's okay. Well,
if you got your red, blue glasses. Mike, you got your red, blue glasses. Does it come across?
Oh, yeah. Well, that's nice.
It works great. Works just great.
Yeah, that's nice.
And then we back to what the original version looked like. Yeah, matter of fact, 3D. I've got all the 3D Viewmasters. We could do a whole 3D thing sometime. So I'll have to start seeing it. Yeah, I've got them like you, Baron. I've got the plastic ones with the real earpieces and all the rest.
That actually worked.
Oh, that's good. It's good to know. Do I know anything interesting about the Enchanted Tiki room? It's one of my favorites. Yeah, if you go down in the basement of that room, it's one of the noisiest places you've ever been in your life. All the relays clicking and banging and clacking. Carol, you were going to say something about the Tiki birds?
Well, I was going to say that I believe Lauren was the one that said I assume she or he is 15 years old and interested in Disney history and really enjoyed your talks.
Oh, okay. I did not see that.
I believe that's the person earlier on that said that.
Oh, okay. Just looking back at some of these other things, I don't think Mouseketeer Lorraine was Lorraine Santoli. Good one, Greg. So you really do think that was her? Greg looks frozen. You're on mute, Greg.
Lorraine worked for marketing and publicity in Disneyland. That's what her book is all about. So it's very possible that she worked there.
1960 though?
Well, I don't know how far back she goes, but she may have been, and she could, it's not out of the realm. I'd have to look it up, but it's not out of the realm of possibility. I mean, how many Lorraines are there?
Oh, I don't know. I'll send her the picture.
I wonder. I have to wonder if that's the case. And to add to the whole Judy Tyler thing that you made, I'm not sure if everyone knows that Judy Tyler is a Disney legend for several reasons. And one is because she did all of those segments, which nobody saw unless they lived in Southern California in 1962. But she also was the Disneyland storyteller on numerous record albums and was the girl squirrel in Sword in the Stone. She was in Mary Poppins. She was Here We Come on the Run with a Burger on a Bun on the Flintstones. A lot of cartoons, and one of the nicest people in the world. So she was very thrilled. In fact, she told me, I didn't put this in the book, but she told me she was walking with Walt down Main Street, and she was very modest about the stuff that she did. And she was talking about doing the records and being the storyteller. And Walt said, "You'll always be my Disneyland storyteller."
Oh, that's really neat. Yeah, I just going back through the things. I do see the note now from Lauren. So hi, Lauren. Welcome to the club. Yes, Carol?
I was just going to say there was that one shot of the shoe shine boys.
Yeah.
Which I think today would not go over well.
Yeah, there might be a challenge, today that the costumes they were wearing, but
No. It's the black.
Yeah,
they
I know.
were both. Oh, okay.
Right. Yeah. That was a very sought after job. Those kids made a fortune because they did the shoe shining, but they also did dancing, and it turned out they made an absolute fortune in tips. So to get the job as the shoe shine boys became something that once you got it, you held on to it for dear life because it paid very, very well for the people that came out and did it. So they had the little aprons in front where they carried their shoe shine, kit stuff. And they would use it to make music, knocking blocks together in a harmonica net. But they also would use it to put the money in. So,
Well, I'm glad they made money, but I do think people would object to it today.
People object to everything, so you're probably
right. That's true.
I was pretty well annoyed by those pink elephants. I see too many of them as it is. So,
Hey, Bill.
Yeah.
I have an observation. A few months ago, we screened the Disneyland After Dark film and noticed that you could probably count on one hand the number of black people in the audience.
Where was that?
On the Disneyland After Dark film for the TV show.
Yeah.
You were there, and we screened it recently, and there's probably maybe 10 blacks in the whole entire program. And it was really kind of interesting that I didn't realize that until I actually saw the film again.
Well, it's actually interesting. Look at a lot of things, the pictures of Disneyland or the 64 World's Fair and that, and the number of minorities of all different types is much less than you'd have today. And I think it was economics played a huge part in it.
Well, this was 1961, so you can put it in that era of 61.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a different world that we live in today.
Very much.
Mike Clark and I are both proofreading a book for somebody on a TV show called Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, if people remember that. And the guy was just commenting in one of the chapters about, here's a submarine got a crew of 100 or something. And after 2-3 years, he sees the first black crew member on board. So, that was mid-60s.
There's a couple of things, funny you should mention that. There's a couple of things about that. First of all, television tried very hard, the creative people in television tried very hard to get minorities on the networks, but there was a lot of pushback because they wanted mass media. They wanted to get the shows played all over the country, and there were certain stations that wouldn't run them. That's the honest truth. Even on shows like Gomer Pyle and Andy Griffith's show, you would see occasionally people of color in those shows, but they had to be very judicious. The Dick Van Dyke Show did 2 episodes.
Oh, yeah.
And they were famous episodes because they dealt with it. And they had to fight for those episodes because the networks were nervous. But that was the reason, because it was just like Lucy being pregnant. They couldn't say pregnant. They had double beds. Television had a lot of growing up to do, and it wasn't for lack of trying. But you also have to, there's a lot that Walt Disney did do. First of all, again, I can show you the Billy Storm album, which is one of for 1963, it was very rare for an African-American's picture to be on the cover of a pop album. If you look at some of the early pop albums, they didn't have a photograph because that way the kids could buy the album and, the parents wouldn't say, what are you doing with that album? There were things like that. So there was a lot of things that were, and the black artists were being taken terrible advantage of by a lot of the promoters. So it wasn't, a lot of things get focused on Walt Disney because he's immortal, but a lot of things were going on in the businesses weren't fair. And I'd love to talk to you guys about Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea because I've actually been studying it, the entire series. And here's another thing about it. In the 4 years, they stopped having as many women on it. And in the 4th season, there are no women. And one of the reasons is because of money, because the networks take the budget down every season. And it takes longer for makeup and hair. So one of the reasons was there wasn't as many girlfriends for Captain Crane and things like that, mostly because it just costs more money for makeup and hair.
Well, plus us fans watching at home, we always hated it as 10-year-olds.
Kids didn't like mushy stuff.
When the heroes would kiss the girls, that was mushy.
Maureen and John Robinson were never allowed to touch intimately or kiss. They weren't allowed to be too intimate on Lost in Space because it was a children's show. On Man from Atlantis, Patrick Duffy was told there were certain kinds of physiques that were 8 o'clock physiques, 9 o'clock physiques, 10 o'clock physiques. That's how network television was back then, you know.
Well, it's yeah. Mike and I, we're just in the chapter right now where they're talking about the lack of women and all the co-stars, you know, complaining about it. David Hedison is like, you know, James Bond can wear a tuxedo, he can go anywhere and do everything, and I've got to kiss a seal, you know. So it's yeah, it's great fun. Mike and I
can't
go way
wait
back.
for that book, because I'm telling you, I am. Is it a second volume of the Mark? I hate to go off topic,
Yeah.
but I will tell you something. Irwin, and this is Disney related. Irwin Allen based almost everything he did on Disney successes, because Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, the movie, is inspired by 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, because it was a monstrous hit. And Irwin Allen was very much a TV sort of a, I don't want to say a poor man's Walt Disney, but he was very much a man child. So what he did was very similar to what Walt Disney did, and was very family friendly. All of his movies were family friendly. He didn't like naughty stuff in his movies. And if you look at both of the Voyage, they're modern day Nemos, and they had a lot of the same storylines. They were fantasies. Lost in Space was supposed to be Space Family Robinson. That's why they're called Robinson, because of the huge success of the Disney movie. So when you think about it, if you look at Bewitched and I Dream of Jeannie and all, they were the Shaggy Dog and Son of Flubber. They were a direct response to what Walt Disney was successful with in movies.
Well, both Mike and I had the pleasure of meeting Irwin, Mike more often than me, and he was a unique individual. When we first got to him, he had not been approached by anybody in fandom over the years. And I mentioned on the talk, you know, I went to Starlog magazine and said, why don't you do an article on Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea? And he said, nobody ever has, why don't you? So people had tried to get to Irwin and they couldn't. Well, I called up. I said, "Hi, you know, this is Bill Cutter at Disney. I'd like to speak to Irwin Allen." Oh, hello, and it worked. And the next thing, Mike and I were over having breakfast with Irwin. So we can chat about that sometime, Greg. It was you still remember Mike Horatio?
Yeah. And to answer his question, yes, the Mark Cushman book of Voyage Volume 1, Bill and I worked on that as proofreaders. And now we're working on the sequel to that, which covers seasons 2 and 3.
Oh, good. When Vincent Price turned them all into little puppets. And
oh,
stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, that. You know what? I'll tell you right here, and right here. Just got it. The just came out for those who are fans. Oh, I put it away. The original soundtrack of the TV show just came out with music from the show. I know I'm changing the subject, but I didn't realize you were the Mike Clark, because you had done an awful lot for Lost.
And that's the Bill Cotter. Bill and I, yeah, there you go. He's got the soundtrack.
There it is. Mike is on the commentaries with Bill Mooney and Angela Cartwright and
Mark Goddard and Marta Christie.
Goddard, and they are really good commentaries on the Great Vegetable Rebellion, where Dr. Smith turns into celery. Oh,
just so we get back to Disney real quick, I've been
Sorry.
telling Mike. No, that's fine. I've been telling Mike to get a video camera and start doing some of these own things themselves, because he's got so many great stories and knows so many super people. So Mike, you know, you see, you got an audience. Greg and I will be there. Get something scheduled. So, what else? Thoughts on
about black people at Disneyland? You guys must have seen Louis Armstrong performing on the Mark Twain.
Oh yeah, they had all sorts of shows back in those days. They had all sorts of Dixieland nights. Some of the shows they brought out some of the entertainers he had performed with for years, and he talked in some interviews about how it was great because he hadn't seen some of them in years and years, and it was great to get back together and redo it. So yeah, the Dixie nights and everything on the riverboat and all that, those were very popular.
And that carried over because when I was a teenager with my boyfriend in the late 60s, we were at Disneyland, and there was Louis Armstrong on the Carnation stage performing. And I wasn't a big fan of his, but we stopped and watched him because you didn't see him every day. And it was really interesting. I mean, it was after Walt had passed away, a few years after, and he was still coming out there and performing at Disneyland.
That's pretty neat. Hey, Mike and Greg, one thing before we go, just to think about it. If I pick up something metal and hit it with a ruler, what happens?
Oh, we have to go like this.
Yeah. For the folks that don't know, on Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, the submarine would all of a sudden lurch from side to side. Well, of course, the set didn't, but they're doing what Mike's doing. And they had a guy that would have a metal bucket, and he would basically just hit it with a hammer. And when he hit it once, everybody would go off to the left, then he hit it, and they go back to the right. So it became, and now, of course, when they do things like Hunt for Red October, they build the set on a giant gimbal, and it actually does move back and forth. But back then, they had a lunch bucket and a hammer. So technology has changed. Yeah, totally.
I want to share this with you. This is the Louis Armstrong album from 1968. And it's been it's been reissued by the Disney Music Emporium. They were selling it at D23. It's on vinyl, but it's also on CD, and you can download it. It's a classic album. It should be in the National Registry. And Louis Armstrong was a friend of Walt Disney's. He got the Mouseketeer. There's a photo of him. And he also was a longtime friend of Tutti Camarata, who also worked with Ella Fitzgerald and with Billie Holiday and a lot of African-American singers and musicians. So it's not like there were major restrictions on any of those things. I think that was more of a television issue.
Okay, it wasn't anything like what I was commenting on.
Oh, I know.
Sure there were famous Black people, but it was the fact that these guys were shoeshine boys and did dancing.
Oh,
it just was like, you know, that I don't see as much as a lot of other people see things to object to. But right now, given the time we're in,
that wouldn't fly.
There was also Aunt Jemima, you know, that closed in the 70s for that very same reason, you know, and now they're going to take the name off the syrup. And, you know, that times do change and people do realize, well, probably shouldn't have.
Yeah.
They wouldn't do that now. They wouldn't have shoeshine boys.
Of course not. If they did, they would not be only Black. You know, they would be a variety of colors probably.
Possibly, yes. But they wouldn't bring that back, I don't think.
No, I don't think so. It was just the picture, and I don't know how prevalent they were. I don't remember ever seeing them, but then my memories are kind of faded a lot. So.
There is the thing that those shoeshine boys were boys. And the despicable thing about the era was grown Black men being addressed as boy. And
well, it
nobody's
was
mentioning it.
Yeah, it was just the idea of the whole thing. I only saw one still picture of that, so it's only based on my observation of that photo.
It was a different time back then. You could do stuff.
It was.
Yeah.
Bill, this is Brock. Back to the Jungle Cruise, you had asked the question about the flag on the back of the ship.
Right.
I remember as a kid going there several times and riding that ride, and the operator, who is going to also be talking to you the whole way through, would tell you where they were from. And sometimes they were from, at least their heritage was from a certain country. And I think what they did was they used those flags to say, I'm from Indonesia or someplace that had a jungle or whatever. And they were the crew, the person that's going to be talking to you. So I think it was connected to that. I can't say that for 100%, but I believe that was what it connected to.
Oh, it could be. Thank you. I appreciate it. I didn't know if they had a dignitary on board or, you know, what they were doing. It just happened to catch the corner of my eye. So
no, I don't think it was that, but when I saw it, I was going like, that is funny. And when I started to remember this thing of they do usually ask somebody in the boat, where are you from? And then they'd say, I'm from such and such, and I'll be your captain today or whatever, that type of thing. Another thing relative to dignitaries, I happened to be at Disneyland one time on the Pirates of the Caribbean. This isn't, of course, in our time frame right now. And there was a boatload of people from some Eastern European country that were over visiting America. It had been advertised, and they came on. It wasn't Khrushchev or anything like that, but it was a boatload of people from one of the Eastern Bloc countries, and they were in the boat ahead of us. And you remember, you know, the first big drop. All I can remember as a kid is we were in the boat behind him, and when it went over into the darkness, all you heard was in unison all these 20 older men all wearing gray suits going, "Oh!" And it was a very strange experience. I'd never quite heard that, and they did it almost in unison, like they were told when to do it almost. So that was kind of funny.
By the way, Bill, you do know that buffalo wasn't alive that was over in the Indian village? That was not a live buffalo.
I actually wondered about it, whether it was alive or not.
No,
but
that was
okay.
It was stuffed. And people would go under the rope to have their picture. I never saw the thing, but I've got pictures of him, and he's always in the same position. And you don't put a live buffalo where a bunch of people are.
Hey, back then, I don't know what they do, but thanks. Yeah, I mean, I looked at it in different pictures. He's slightly moved in different areas, but I know they took him back to the warehouse at night and hosed him down or something.
But I don't know what happened to him, but he was stuffed.
Yeah.
They're very dangerous. You don't do that.
Well, I've got a question for you, minuscule detail here. Going through some of my mom's old photos, I found another Disneyland photo of the burning cabin. I'm trying to date it. She didn't date any of her photos. It drives me nuts. But this one has the guy lying in front with the arrow in his chest. Do you know when they got rid of him?
Don't know which year. I mean, it's interesting. If you look at the different photos, in some cases he's lying with his head up towards the cabin. Sometimes he's pointed down from the cabin. There's one I've got where he's draped like he's gone over this fence. So if you send me a copy of the picture, I'll see if I can match it to anything that I've got, Don. But I don't know when they finally took him out and, politicized it that, it went from the Indians have killed the guy to went to, oh, look, his still's blown up and he killed himself. Now it's, just, oh, look at that cabin up on the hill. So it's all
I heard
changed
that
the whole
somebody wrote a letter, some mother wrote a letter and complained about it, and that's all they needed, and they took him away. It was like in the late 80s.
Yeah, well, he's lying on his back with his head on a stump with an arrow sticking right out of his chest.
Yeah, it's pretty violent. Good old Walt.
But I'll send you one, or I'll put it up on the Vintage Disneyland site. And I'm just curious, because if I can date this one, I can probably tie the others in with it. But my mom had a habit of throwing all of her photos in a plastic bag and then sorting them by the first one she found. So she would look in and say, oh, look, this is a picture of this. So all the rest must be of that. And it's been an interesting adventure sorting through them.
Oh, it is. Sometimes it's, Carol and I were going through that recently with some pictures from her family. And it's like, did you guys not own a pencil? Could you please have written down? I've got the same thing with some of my parents' photos. Like, where is this? When is it from? Who are these people? And luckily, sometimes with Facebook, you can put it out there, and some of the, my contemporaries, oh, that's my mother. There was a party with your parents or whatever. So I was just trying to find a picture for you, but I can't find it right now. It's the trouble. You have too many pictures over two period of time. They all add up after a while. I mean,
I imagine you have a few.
Yeah, I've got several thousand, as you can tell from just Disneyland. So let's see, Frontierland. Nope, can't find the one that I wanted. Yeah, so send it to me, Don. I'll see if I can find narrow it down any timeline wise for you.
I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Sure, no problem. So appreciate folks joining. Hopefully the folks on the East Coast, I see that there's a hurricane heading your way. And Robert, did you have something, or are you on the East Coast? East Coast, okay. You're muted, Robert. If you hit the space bar, you shouldn't mute yourself. There you go.
I'm sorry, Bill. Yeah, I'm on the East Coast. I'm in New York City.
Okay. Well, I wish everybody there the best. I see the storm looks like it's going to hit as many of the eastern states as it can on its way up. So hopefully
I'm in Fort Lauderdale, so we're going to get slammed here shortly.
Oh, goodness. Yeah. Do not miss hurricanes at all. Of course, we had our earthquake on Thursday morning, which was incredible fun. So you felt it too, Leslie, huh, here in Burbank?
Yes, I did. I did. It was. I was in the bathroom and had toothpaste in my mouth. And it was like, no.
No ice cream?
What's that?
No ice cream?
Oh, Right here. There's my ice cream. And I'm about to eat it.
Oh, great. Well, the worst thing about it, though, is the first one hits us at 4.2, and you go, oh, that was pretty scary, because it was real close to us, less than 5 miles away and pretty shallow.
Yes.
And the next one hits, it's the 3.1. You go, oh, okay, that wasn't so bad. Then the third one hits, it's a 3.8, and you go, oh, okay, what's the fourth one going to be like? And luckily, the fourth one's, and the fifth and sixth and the 10th were all in the 2s or something. But that's the worst thing. You're sitting just waiting for the next one. What's that?
4 o'clock in the morning. Is that when it hit?
4:29. Yeah.
Right. I was asleep, and it may have rocked in Torrance, but we didn't feel a thing.
It felt
a long way from you.
It felt real good here. And then if everybody thought you heard the dogs on the call today, you should have heard them on Thursday morning. Oh, the poor little things are just scared to death. Oh, when the house was shaking and they said they were screaming, "Dad, come and save us!" You know, yeah. And then every aftershock,
I was at a horseback ride in Rancho Cucamonga one time, and I was standing there with a little horse, and they had a small earthquake, and I could feel it under my feet. And you know, he was eating. He didn't move an inch. He didn't look up. He didn't do anything. And I thought, he's my earthquake partner. He wasn't upset at all.
We have the misfortune of having a house that's built on fill rather than rock. And so our house moves a lot more, which is why we had so much damage from the Northridge quake. And so our house moves a lot more than my friend's, who lives 5 minutes away, but her house is on rock. And I just said, if we ever move, we're going to find a house that's on solid ground.
It won't matter because it won't be in California. So, yeah.
Well,
it doesn't matter what kind of ground you're on. I mean,
yes, it does.
No, it does. It really does. The waves go through and they hit a rock. A rock transmits it through pretty much. It hits soil and the soil goes up and down. So that's why, like in San Francisco, you look at liquefaction, it makes a tremendous difference. So the waves move, they hit sand, they transmit into vertical movement as opposed to horizontal. So in the Northridge earthquake, where, as Carol mentioned, we have a stream across from our house. We got clobbered. Our house is pretty well destroyed. On the other side of Balboa Boulevard, they're on rock, and the house that we rented for a year while we rebuilt ours had a crack in the fireplace. You know, it was half a mile, maybe a quarter of a mile away, and my entire street just got destroyed. That entire street over there, you couldn't even tell it was an earthquake. So the difference between soil and rock.
Earthquake, we were in an apartment in Torrance on a second floor, and both my husband and I sat up in bed, and I could hear everything moving back and forth. I thought, oh my God, everything in the front room, it's all on the floor, it's all busted up. And when I went out there, some books fell over, and that was it.
Well, you didn't have the experience.
Miles away.
Well, we
felt hard, but
when Northridge hit, and a 5.0 aftershock came through, and it was standing barefoot in the backyard. I could feel the wave go underneath.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Well, I think you mentioned the backyard. We looked in our pool and we lost, I think it was about 2 feet of water out of the pool that first day. But my brother and father came out from New York to help us clean up the house and salvage what we could. And a 5.0 hit, and they went running out the door. I mean, screaming as they ran out of the street. And Carol and I were like, it's not that bad, because everything is relative.
Yeah, but they also had been putting books back up on the shelves.
Yeah.
And they all came down again.
My library is sort of like Greg's behind him. He's got all the record albums. So I've got an entire library of books. And they just finished picking them all up. And my brother was like, oh, God, you know. And the videotapes all came crashing down, several thousand of those. So I said, don't even try to put them in order. Just get them off the floor or whatever. But it was so bad at our house. We could walk from our house to the backyard and not worry about where the door was because it wasn't there. You know, it was a real mess. So I appreciate folks joining, and I will get Disney World the first 5 years together next week, since that was overwhelmingly voted on. And I hope folks do well with the storm. All kidding aside, they're never fun. And hope everybody stays okay for the next week. For the folks that
so much, I look forward to these. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. I was saying to Carol.
Thanks a lot, Bill. Most appreciated. I enjoyed this.
Thank you so much.
Really, really wonderful.
Well, I appreciate it. And I said to Carol that when I first started doing this, it was like, oh, the pandemic, we'll be stuck at home for a month or so. I'll do it.
Yeah.
And, you know, and now it's like, well,
5
okay,
months
what do we do for the
later.
next, the second month, third month, the fourth? Oh my goodness. So I'm just glad I collected a lot of pictures. And Mike Clark, you need to do things, and you know, maybe we'll have some guest star days, and we can all voyage to the bottom of the sea ourselves into, you know, and now Leslie, you've encouraged me. I'm going to have lunch, and then I'm going to have an ice cream. So
yeah, and I'm going to get my I'm going to get my camera fixed so I can talk to you through the whole thing.
Yeah. So again, we were just downtown. Mike just did a neat videotape for us the other day for something, and he's really great. But there was, in one shot of it, you can see the Disney Ghirardelli store, and I was thinking, oh, I just wish the pandemic wasn't here, because I would have loved to have gone in. It's been so long since I've had a hot fudge sundae. Something to look forward to. So thanks all, appreciate it. I will stop the recording, and we will see some of you, or most of you, hopefully all of you, in a week or so.
Okay, take care.